that there is actually anything wrong with traveling on Shabbat to an extent. And what I mean by that is if you have to travel on Shabbat, you travel on Shabbat. I am not a person who thinks that turning on your car is lighting a fire. Now, I know that within Messianic Judaism, within standard Judaism, this would be seen, some people would see this as an egregious offense to the profaning the Shabbat, right? I think it's a lot easier to do this and turn my car on, or this for my car, right? To do this than it is to walk, 3 miles to the congregation. I think it's, especially when you got 4 kids, I think it's a lot easier to press a button. Now, we get into some sticky situations here. And the reason why is, what happens if you have a flat tire? What happens if you forgot to put gas in your car and you run out of gas? There's all sorts of things that could happen. What happens if you get pulled over? What happens, are you causing someone to work if you get pulled over? What happens if you get into a car accident? There's all sorts of situations that could come from driving your car on Shabbat. If you're talking about traveling, this gets even harder. Let's say that my family does not spend money on Shabbat. I don't even carry a wallet usually on Shabbat. And so if you're going to travel on Shabbat, let's say that you buy your tickets first, and I have had to do this before. It is difficult to get around the idea of, how are we going to prepare for the Shabbat? I have to, if I'm taking a plane somewhere, I have to think about, am I going to eat somewhere? Well, I have to bring all my food because I'm not going to buy, I'm not going to spend any money. Am I causing other people to work? There's a lot that goes into it. I think that the first place that I start, and I'll pass this over to you in a few seconds here, Rob. But Yeshua travels on the Shabbat. We know this, right? The whole story of the Pharisees coming to him and his disciples as they pick the grain, right? They're clearly going somewhere, so they're traveling on Shabbat. Now, obviously, there were no cars at the time, so I don't think it's wrong to travel on the Shabbat. However, at the same time, I think that we should try to limit it as much as possible. We should go place. Now, my family likes to take walks on Shabbat, right? And so, it's there's all sorts of things that would go into this. Once again, I know that there are people who would say, no, we shouldn't travel at all on Shabbat. Some people would say we can travel as long as we don't use things like cars or, automobiles or something like that. And then there are benefits to that, believe it or not. If you live close enough to walk to the congregation that you're a part of, then guess what? Everyone in your congregation believes that you shouldn't be using cars. Then guess what? Everyone lives close enough to walk to the congregation, which means everybody's close, which is a huge blessing. So anyway, Rob, traveling.
Yeah, and that's a preservation of an ancient, back you're working on Corinthians, any place where, we know Paul lived next door to the synagogue for 18 months, it says.
Yeah.
So obviously he didn't have to take a car or a city bus. No, but the idea is that is obviously, I think, an ideal situation, like to have a community of believers, and the Orthodox Jews have done a good job of preserving that priority to have synagogue communities where they live in close proximity to each other. And but the church doesn't typically hasn't preserved that. Now, of course, the driving is just in the last 100 years has that become a thing. In most of all history, of course, you'd have to, I guess you could take if you had money or a horse, or a carriage, you could ride to a meeting. But walking through most of history, people had to walk to be somewhere. Paul, when they go to, is it Macedonia, I think, and Philippi, they walk to the river. They go to the river on the Shabbat, and that's where they meet Lydia, I think, if I remember right. But so the idea of being outdoors, walking together is definitely a wonderful thing. And I think in our day and age, we could use more of that because of the noise from electronic devices and things that, and busyness. It slows us down, and I like to hear that you guys like going for a walk being outside, where you really shift into a much slower pace as part of that rhythm difference between your 6 work days and the 7th day. But back to the email or text about, Joshua's 7 days. One of those days is a Sabbath, and they're marching around. And so, that was an issue in the time of the Maccabees, that the Syrians attacked Jews on the Sabbath day, because they knew that they would be resting and wouldn't be like vigilant to fight back. And the Maccabees ruled subsequent to that it is okay to fight on the Sabbath, because you have to defend your life. And so that's just an early example, though, for the Second Temple period, but where there's like some sort of negotiation about Sabbath law. Of course, if the animal falls in a pit, is it okay to help it out? I think in modern day, like Orthodox Judaism, they're going to say, look, if it's a choice between not coming to synagogue or driving, it's better for you to be here, so drive.
Continue listening to this conversation by clicking the full show link on the left side of your screen, or check out the video on the right that YouTube thinks you'll like. Don't forget to subscribe to this YouTube channel so you never miss content from Messiah Matters.